What's up guys, Matt Laidlaw here, coming to you from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, LA area's oldest, largest, and finest Harley-Davidson dealership. So today my review is going to be on the brand new 2018 Fatboy. The Fatboy has been an iconic motorcycle in the Harley-Davidson lineup for a long time now. In my opinion, it's the most iconic motorcycle that Harley-Davidson makes. So the big news this year, and I'm sure most of you heard by now, Harley-Davidson completely revamped the Softail chassis. This bike, the Fatboy, is built on that brand new chassis. I have a video that I have up that really outlines exactly what was done to these new platforms, so I'll put a link to that video in a card and at the end here. So in Fatboy fashion, you've got these aluminum disc mag wheels here that are kind of an iconic trait about the Fatboy. And you've got an LED Daymaker headlamp in this. All the new Softails have LED, really bright headlamps. And in Fatboy fashion, you've got kind of this freight train style nacelle that houses this LED light. You've got the Harley-Davidson Fatboy kind of insignia on the side of the tank here. The Fatboy is a military tribute bike, just in case you guys don't know, the star, the wings, and the USA down there. Fatboy its name comes from a combination of the two atom bombs that were dropped in World War II, Fat Man and Little Boy, and a combination of those two give you Fatboy. This bike you can purchase it in a 107 or 114 configuration. This is the new Milwaukee 8 engine. This is the first year that the Milwaukee 8 has been offered on a bike other than the touring bikes. You have an external preload adjustment knob on this bike. This is one of a few bikes this model year that comes with this, the other two being the Breakout and the Fat Bob. Here's your oil. The oil is no longer in that pan underneath the seat anymore. It's underneath the transmissions where the oil sump is. You have a two-piece seat on this bike. That's one of the cool things that Harley-Davidson did this year with this new Softail platform, is all their seats are two-piece seats. So if you want a more comfortable passenger seat, instead of having to buy a brand new seat, you can just buy the passenger portion and slap it on there. And you can kind of mix and match seats. And so both the rider and the passenger can kind of get what they want. One of the big things they did this year is they put a huge 240 millimeter rear tire on the back of this bike. Kind of one more thing that kind of lends to the name of the Fatboy. The front wheel on this thing is the biggest front wheel width-wise that they've ever put on a motorcycle as well, 160 millimeter front tire. So this bike really is fat. So they use a lot of what they call the satin chrome finishes on this bike, on the primary casing there. This is a new floorboard design. The floorboards are higher, so the lean angle has been increased on this new Softail platform. Here's another shot of the military tribute insignia that has always been on the Fatboy. The Fatboy first came out in 1990 and has pretty much been a staple in the Harley lineup ever since then. Here is your four-piston caliper or four-piston brake calipers, and it's a single rotor, single side, single disc brake, I should say. The fuel tank is a 5-gallon fuel tank. One of the things about the Fatboy that's kind of always been a distinguishing trait about the Fatboy is you've had bullet holes in the disc mag wheels, and they put those bullet holes in the center console now. This is a USB port. All of these Softails, guys, have a USB port on the left-hand side of the bike, so you can charge your phone or whatever electronic device you might have off of that USB port. That's not just unique to just the Fatboy, but all the Softails have that. So here's a closer look at the display here. So you've got your speedo in an analog, and then you have a digital readout. You press the switch here, and it gives you a digital readout of your trip A, a trip B. You have your fuel there digitally, remaining miles before you run out of fuel. You have a clock in there as well, and then this displays your RPM and the gear you're in as well. That's your odometer there. So an analog tach on your speedometer, and then everything else is all digital as far as your fuel, your range, your clock. You have a trip A and trip B. And anything with the 114 setup comes with ABS. This is a decorative cap, you guys. This just spins off, and you can put different decorative caps on the tank. It used to be the fuel gauge. In past models, it's no longer the fuel gauge. All the gas goes in the right-hand side here. I think I already mentioned it's a 5-gallon fuel tank. These Softails come in two sizes, either 5-gallon or 3.5 gallon. So this does have the bigger of the two. And there's your bullet holes there in the center of the tank there on the center console. So they removed the bullet holes from the disc wheels and put them in the center console there. One more thing that kind of lends to the military tribute that this bike pays homage to. So all of these new Softails, guys, all come with security. They're all keyless. This key here, all it does is lock the forks. And it's an aluminum key. It's, I don't mean to dwell too much on the key, but it's a really cool key. And yeah, the actuation in the fork lock is a lot cleaner and a lot smoother now than it used to be in years past. They used, one of the things they did with the Softail chassis this year, guys, is they reduced the weight anywhere between 30 to 35 pounds on each of these Softail models. And they did that by really analyzing every part they put on these and tried to cut weight wherever they could. And they used aluminum wherever they could instead of steel to try to reduce the weight. And you can definitely tell that the weight reduction is there. So really fat wheels on this thing. This bike almost reminds me of the bikes that you see like in Tron. Just really fat looking style bikes, real aggressive, mean styling, combined with that headlamp. It's just a really cool, aggressive, meaty muscle type of a styling. So I'm going to go ahead and fire this thing up so you guys can hear the sound of the engine and kind of see what it looks like visually as it's running and everything. So a couple things of note on this Milwaukee 8, they put a dual counterbalancer in there. In the original Milwaukee 8 that was offered on the touring bikes last year, it just had a single counterbalancer near the front of the engine down by where the oil cooler is and the voltage regulator. So there's another flywheel in this version of the Milwaukee 8 that's specifically designed for the Softails, and that is between the crank and the transmission. So yeah, you've got two counterbalancers on this bike, and so it's the primary shaking forces are 100% reduced on this. So there's very little vibration in Softail fashion, and what that did was it allowed them to also really increase the rigidity of this whole bike, from top to bottom, the frame and the way the engine is mounted to the frame and all that. So this bike is a lot stiffer, 90% stiffer than the Dyna chassis was. I think the figure they throw out is like 65% stiffer than previous model Softails, and it's definitely noticeable, guys. I mean, everything from rider input into the handlebars to just the way that it's leans and accelerates out of a turn. Everything is just quicker, and the reaction time is a lot better. So this is HarleyDavidson.com. I just want to go through this to kind of show you guys some of the highlights. The suspension on these new Softail frames too, I should add, is far superior to the old Softail frames. I mean, it was kind of a weird thing that Harley-Davidson even called them a Softail anymore, quite frankly, because it's really nothing like the old Softails at all. The only thing Softail about it now is you still have hidden suspension. The suspension is up underneath the seat. Here's the available colors, guys. The first one was black. This is Black Tempest. Black Tempest is kind of like a bluish, blackish, really deep, like pearl flake color. This is called Industrial Gray. This is a really cool color. I like this color a lot. And the next color here is called Bonneville Salt Pearl, We just got one of these at our store the other day. This is a cool color. And this is the color I'm using in the video. This is the Wicked Red and Twisted Cherry two-tone. Here's an anniversary color. This is Legend Blue and Vivid Black. The Fatboy is the only model to come in two different, or both of the anniversary colors. So this is the non-denim finish, and this is the denim finish. They call it Legend Blue Denim, and it's got tattoo style graphics on it. This is we got one of these and it sold pretty quick, but yeah, that was a cool color. Alright, so let me go through some stats on this thing here. So the 107 cubic inch bike starts at $18,999. That's for a black one. It goes up like $400 from there if you go from a color and then to a two-tone. ABS is standard on this bike, as well as the security system. The security system standard on all the Softails. This bike has, of course, the Milwaukee 8 engine. Milwaukee 8 gets its name from the 4 valves per cylinder with a total of 8 valves. It has a single cam. And I didn't really want to spend a whole lot of time on the stats here. It's got what they call the machined Lakester wheels. It's a brand new wheel this year. It's kind of a futuristic type of a wheel. It's kind of like like I said before, the solid disc wheel that they've used for many years, but they have kind of a futuristic twist on it. It looks really good. And if you want the 114, it's $20,299. So you're looking at about a $1,300 upcharge if you want the 114, which in my opinion, it's pretty well worth it. So I know everybody likes to see the horsepower and torque figures, so let me show you what Harley-Davidson publishes in their Screaming Eagle section of the catalog here. So this is for the 114 cubic inch Softail bikes, and it shows you what stock is there. It's the black dotted line down there. So, and this is at the rear wheel. This is not at the crank, where everybody likes to brag about their power. They like to brag about their power at the crank. But it's about 85 horsepower at 4,500 RPM on these bikes. And this is with the 114. And then your torque is at about 109 foot-pounds of torque at the rear wheel. And that peaks at 3,000 RPM. So if you look at the websites, I believe they claim 119 foot-pounds of torque, and that's going to be measured at the crank. And that's on the 114, and on the 107 version, they claim 109 foot-pounds of torque at the crank. So there you go. So let me just start off with some basic overall, just general information about this new Softail frame. I am extremely impressed with this new platform. I mean, I've been able to ride, probably 5 or 6 of these new Softails at this point, and I've never been able to ride a Harley-Davidson harder and more aggressively than these Softails. These Softails really are the performance frame in the Harley-Davidson world now, which is kind of funny because before this, the Softail frame was probably the worst performing platform and frame that Harley-Davidson had. So it's literally gone from the worst to the best overnight. Yeah, the guys out there that they're worried about, their dyno frame being gone and all that stuff, really have nothing to worry about, because this new Softail chassis outperforms the old dyno frame hands down. The FXR frame, I've had a couple questions. People say, well, is it as good as the FXR frame? Yes, this bike dominates the FXR frame. It's not even close, and I know that because my brother rides an FXR, and I ride FXRs all the time. For its time, the FXR was awesome, but too many people are living in the past, and that's really Harley-Davidson's blessing and their curse. Is people just love their motorcycles, and they have them for a long time, and just the classic feel and nature about them is just it's almost something of a collectible lifestyle. There's just so many things that are ingrained in people with classic Harley-Davidsons, and so because of that, people kind of romanticize about the way things used to be and all that, and like I said, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. But just from performance and handling and just overall suspension, power to weight, everything about these new Softails is just light years better than the old, especially the old Softail chassis, but even the old Dyna chassis. So now let me talk to you about the Fatboy specifically. The way I would best describe this Fatboy is it is a muscle cruiser. And what I mean by that is this thing looks great, very simplistic, classic lines about a Harley-Davidson with kind of a futuristic flair in the headlamp and in the wheels, with still the real classic lines of the tank and the rear end and the swing arm and everything. And because it's got the really fat tires on it and everything, this thing is not the best handling Softail. There's a lot better handling Softails out there, like your Lowrider or your Fat Bob are going to out handle this thing, no problem, hands down. Now the fat wheels in this thing, because of them, one thing I noticed on this bike is as I was entering turns, I had to slow way down. If you're on the brake at all entering a turn, this thing's going to want to stand upright, and this thing just does not like to lean over into a turn. So you got to slow way down, hit your turn. This bike is just not going to be good on like real tight, like switchback type of roads. You're going to have to slow way down for this thing to do its work. I'll tell you what is really fun to do with this bike though is what I just did, start off at a dead stop and just roll it on, and you just feel like you got this ton of traction in the rear with that huge fat tire back there, and you just want to rip the throttle wide open and just give it all it's got. And this thing is just a really fun stoplight to stoplight bike, that's for sure. Let me comment too on the suspension. The monoshock rear suspension that's brand new this year. Oh, by the way, that turn right there, that's a perfect example of just me not being able to lay the bike down and initiate the bike into a turn very effectively. I had to take that turn way wide. But going back to the shock, the monoshock on this bike, and there's two travel lengths on the Softail chassis. This is the 3.5 inch travel in this rear shock. All the bikes have this shock with the exception of the Heritage and the Fat Bob. Those have 4.5 inches of travel. But the suspension on this bike is just far superior to the old Softails, and the best way to describe it is you have more of that planted feeling where the wheels and the tires stay in contact with the asphalt as you're going over little bumps and grooves in the road and things like that. and that's achieved by this monoshock design, and also the single cartridge design in the front forks. It's the Showa dual bending valve system they have in the front, which was developed and applied to the touring bikes in the 2017 model year. And so they've put that technology on these new Softails, and it really does the trick. These things really give you that planted feeling. They give you more confidence really cranking on these bikes hard. Another really beneficial thing about this new Milwaukee 8 platform being put in these new Softails is it produces a lot less heat. Or what I should say is the cooling system is really efficient in these. I'm sure they still produce plenty of heat, but the oil cooling system that circulates oil around the heads really reduces the heat on these engines significantly. So you're getting a lot less of that heat radiating up on you. And as I'm kind of tapping the different engine components on this bike, it's really apparent to me that the heat is reduced significantly on these engines, and they run at a cooler temperature. So these bikes do have the cable clutch. All the touring bikes that have this Milwaukee 8 engine in them have the hydraulic clutch now. So that was kind of surprising to me that they didn't go to the hydraulic clutch on these bikes. Not that it's a big deal. The cable clutch felt great on this bike. The clutch felt good. The gearbox felt great on the bike as well. Gears shifted no problem. Felt good and smooth. You still got that distinct feeling when you shift a gear, like most people would expect from a Harley-Davidson. You've got a distinct sound to it, and clicks into place like you're on a heavy-duty piece of machinery. So that all felt really good. Handlebars are nice. I believe these are the 1.25" handlebar, all internally wired, so really clean bar design. And that's one of the things that I can say about this bike in a big way, is everything is real simplistic styling, as you'd expect from a Harley-Davidson. So that all looks really good. The chassis size, these Softail frames are pretty small, guys. I felt like there was no more room on these as there were on the old Softails, and maybe actually a little bit less room. I'm 6 foot 6 inches tall, and so this bike was definitely a cramped seating position for me. I know Harley-Davidson does have a tall boy seat for this bike though, which probably kicks you back 2 or 3 inches. I'd be curious to try that out and see how that fit me. But if I wasn't as tall as I am, I'd probably pick one of these Softails as my next bike to purchase. I'm a big fan of them. But because I do a lot of freeway riding, and I'm tall, and I like the fairings and the radios and the communication aspects about the touring bikes, I am going to go with the touring bike this model year. But this Fatboy, this is for the guy that wants to just get out on the weekend, maybe just do a day trip. You can throw someone in the back, just grab a more comfortable seat if they're going to be back there for more than 20 minutes or so. There are a couple different sizes of sissy bar on this bike. I will say you are a little bit more limited on this bike, also including the breakout. The breakout on this bike both have the 240 millimeter rear tire, so you're a little bit more limited on your options for the sissy bar. You have kind of the low profile type backrest pads. You cannot put a tour pack on the back of this bike. That's kind of something that new and cool that Harley-Davidson came out with on the Softails, is they made it easier for you to put a tour pack on the back of these bikes. However, this bike and the Breakout and the Fat Bob will not accept a tour pack on the back. So one more thing that kind of puts this bike into the category of just a muscly day cruiser type of a bike. Real clean lines. You do have a ton of handlebar options on this bike, guys. Real simplistic riser style on this bike. So if you want to do like 8 hangers or something like that on this bike, this would be a great bike to choose. So really good blank canvas to really customize this bike in any way you see fit. So yeah, again, kind of segueing into who I would recommend this bike for. I'd recommend this bike for someone that wants a bike to really crank on and feel a ton of torque, this bike is really torquey. It's just a really fun muscle bike to roll on the throttle, feel the torque in the seat of your pants, customize how you like it. Real good classic lines, simplistic engineering and styling, so you can do a lot of things to customize it. This new Softail frame and chassis have quite a few customization options as far as the seating position and your typical things like grips, floorboards, and shifter levers, brake pedal, stuff like that. So if you're a guy that is going to get out on the freeway, do a lot of long distance two-up riding, probably not the best bike for you. If you're someone that really likes real technical, razor sharp handling, not the best bike for you. You really got to kind of slow down to initiate a turn on this thing, or have like really wide sweeping turns. It's not real flickable type of handling on this thing. So if you're looking for a real good canyon carver, not the best bike. I will say that the braking on these Softails, even though it's a single disc brake, the braking is really good, guys. I mean, this 4-piston caliper stops these bikes really, really well. So yeah, braking is great on these things, especially with the weight reduction as well. Combination of those two, the braking is fine. I had a couple people, bitch and moan about the fact that some of these bikes that used to have dual disc brakes, like your lowrider, don't have it anymore. And I really didn't miss that on this bike at all. Not that the Fatboys ever had the dual disc brakes, but the braking was just fine. But yeah, I'm definitely a fan of this Fatboy, guys. I think it's a really cool, iconic model that Harley-Davidson has only improved on. Just made it a lot faster. This thing's awesome with the 114. Even the 107, I'm sure, hauls ass on this thing. You'll have plenty of power, but the 114, even better. Just that real good roll-on torque. Does good on the freeway. I wouldn't want to take this thing to across country or something like that, because the wind does start to beat on you. You can get a windshield for this bike, and if you're going to do a lot of freeway high-speed riding, I definitely recommend a windshield. But anyways, guys, yeah, that about concludes my review here. So if you have any questions, as always, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. If you want to get a Harley-Davidson, you live in the Southern California area, please hit me up. You know where to find me.